Bruce Johnson, and welcome back for this, the final video in our restoration of a Gustav Stickley side chair. As you may recall, in our first video, we identified this chair using the remnants of a paper label and a red decal. In our second video, we did an itemized list of exactly what we needed to do to restore the chair. Then, in our third video, we cleaned it without damaging the original finish. And in our last video, we applied a coat of a dark paste wax we made ourselves to take care of the nicks and scratches and to protect the shellac. And now we're ready for the last step, and that is putting on a leather seat. As you may recall, when we got this chair, it had a green fabric on it that's not original to the chair, but the pyramid tacks were. So we carefully removed the tacks, took away the seat, but saved both. The fabric we're going to use as a pattern, and the tacks we're going to put back in when we're all done. Now when it comes to talking about leather for arts and crafts furniture, too often we just think in shades of brown. And I must confess, I'm guilty of that. But when we go back and read the literature of the period, we find that Gustav Stickley sold leather in several shades of brown. In addition, he also sold it in gray and in green. Now one of the things I liked about that original cloth fabric was the fact that it was green, and the green gave us a nice contrast, a bit of relief to the nut brown color of the wood. And so for this particular chair, I decided I was going to go with a green fabric on top of this rather than going back to the traditional brown. Now when you go shopping for leather, you're going to be surprised when you find that the thickness is actually measured in ounces. It's a little confusing at times because 1 ounce equals 1/64 of an inch. But hey, don't worry about memorizing that. More often than not, upholstery leather is sold around a 5-ounce measurement. So if you're getting anything around there, it's going to be flexible enough for what we want to do. And the great thing about upholstery leather, it usually comes to us pre-finished and pre-stained. So we don't have to worry about dyes or finishes. All we have to worry about is cutting it out and installing it. The first step will be to use our original fabric as a pattern for our leather. Using a pen and a ruler, I'll mark the notches for each of the 4 legs. If your chair doesn't have the original piece of fabric, you can make a pattern simply by first cutting a piece of heavy craft paper to fit over the seat and around the legs. Depending on the thickness of your leather, you can use either a pair of scissors or a utility knife to cut it, and it may take a couple of passes. And when you're done, be sure to leave each of the 4 tails so that later we can pull them to get the leather tight across the chair seat. With our 4 notches cut in our leather, we can now position it on top of our chair and check the fit around those legs. I like the way that looks, so I'm going to take just a single upholstery tack, pull that tail tight across the front rail, and get it started. And I'll tack it in place. Then I'm going to go to the back of the chair, pull on that tail, put a single upholstery tack back there, do the same for either side, making sure I don't have any wrinkles across the top. With the leather pulled nice and tight, I can see that I don't have any wrinkles. So I'm going to pick up my chair, lay down an old drop cloth, or you can use a blanket to protect the chair, turn it upside down to put the rest of the tacks in. These are standard upholstery tacks I space approximately 1 inch apart. I generally try to push the tack through the leather and into the wood, then drive them the rest of the way in with the tack hammer. With the last tack in place, I can now cut off the tail I used to stretch the leather. The pyramid tacks actually serve both a functional and a decorative feature. And since they're more than 100 years old and very brittle, I'm pre-drilling each hole before I put in the tack. Since the metal head of my hammer would scratch the metal tacks, I'm going to protect it by using this short piece of wood as a buffer between my hammer and each of the tacks as I drive them in. Well, that brings us to the end of this restoration of our Gustav Stickley side chair. And it certainly has come a long ways in a short period of time since we pulled it out of my barn. Back then, the chair was covered with grime and cobwebs, but we were still able to find that faint red decal and a partial paper label. And now, after a careful cleaning, waxing, and a new leather seat, this chair would make a proud addition to any room in your home. And I hope you can take some of these tips and techniques and apply them to your arts and crafts furniture. Now here at artsandcraftscollector.com, we hope to be making some more videos in the near future. But first, we want to hear from you. Send us an email. Tell us what you think, and more important, what you'd like to see. Until then, thanks for stopping by.